you qualify. It doesn't say that you have to show us your checking account, your bank account, whether you did a trip. It's, did you pay employees? Did you pay property taxes? Did you pay businesses and stuff? Fine, here's your money.
Okay, so does a guy that has $10 million to make get $3,000 from us?
Maybe.
Well, I think that's wrong. I'm giving you my ideas, and you know, that's fine. Hell, I want the money too then.
You don't qualify, but
hey, who does all the underwriting? I think, you know, just because you're in business and things.
You don't qualify either.
No. And how do you prove you had a loss from COVID? So anyway, I just think it's use of public funds that I feel bad for everybody, but I still think of the public. You know, I don't like when people that I elect go use my taxpayer dollars for things that I don't agree with. And I got to believe there's a lot of people out there that don't agree. They want their tax dollars used for it either. So I'm a no vote, but I don't think it's I understand the compassion for it, and I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do, but I'm just not for it.
But isn't that why we set this fund up for this?
No, we're not. Didn't we just say we're not going to give anybody a raise yet till we figure out what the budget?
One video.
Yeah, answer my question.
You got somebody in the audience.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I mean, Dean, ask your question.
Well,
And get that
isn't that
answer.
what that fund was set up for this type of emergency?
Right. You know,
And I understand where Mike's coming from because, yeah, and I mean, like, I didn't get no help from nobody. But the bottom line is I do know several businesses in Ripon that this $3,000 would really, really help them. But it's like Leo says, how do you pick and choose who you're going to give it to and who you're not going to give it to? You know what I mean? And but like I say, to me, it seems like we voted on this years ago and set it up, and that money's in an account somewhere sitting there. Why wouldn't you want to use it?
Yeah, and I think after we went through the Great Recession and realized that, you know, at that time, all we had was a reserve account. And we still have that same reserve account, but the thought was, let's keep that money there for, you know, depending how bad it goes. But we realized these happen every 10 years, every 8 years. And so that was really, I think, the basis for the contingency funds, and recognize that they happen. You know, you're going to use those. These are the funds you use, not only for, you know, for everything, for the operations of the city, and just trying to not cut services to the public. But also with that, you realize that as you use these, you got to replenish them after that downturn is over. And that was the policy of the council at the time. So when surpluses come back, these are the first funds you replace with and make sure you're within these policies. And really at that point, it's the council's discretion. I think if you look at these, the one that was set up that gives you the most flexibility or applicable to this is the fund related to natural disaster. But it's also the council's discretion with the funds below that, if it's a policy of the council to use those. Those were set up for capital replacement type items, but it's certainly unrestricted funds, and the council would have be able to dedicate those to this grant program as well.
Well, and one of the things I think we need to take into consideration when doing this is, because in my heart of hearts, I agree with Mike, except this isn't a natural downturn because of markets or market correction or anything related to that. This is government imposed shutdown on businesses. This lays at the feet of the US government, telling businesses that you cannot be open. You cannot accept patrons in your business, and we are going to alter the way that you do business. And from that perspective, I'm leaning more towards Leo's camp, to where we need to do something, even if it's just a little bit. But I agree with you, Mike, on, you know, do you cap it at, you know, you made more, you have $10 million in the bank, so you've done your due diligence, you know, and you really don't need it. Very similar to what some of these other businesses have done that have qualified for it. And when you look at their balance sheets, you go, you've got $10 billion sitting in the bank. What are you doing accepting $8 million? So from that perspective, you know, I think that we might want to consider a cap as to this, but I do think we need to do something.
So Jake, not to disagree with you or agree with you.
No, that's fine.
You just made a comment, the federal government shut it down, so the city's going to bail them out because of something the federal government did. That's where I think I have a problem. And the federal government's gone out and done it. So think about people on unemployment. They're making more money on unemployment with that extra $600 than they are working. That's why a lot of people aren't going back to work. So I mean, a lot of this stuff is so mixed up. It's just,
No,
my
I agree.
my
And that's,
concern would be is we use it, and we don't know what our budget looks like, and now we have to start cutting staff or something happens internally. And we've given away public money when we could have kept it for city services, fixing roads or something. I don't know. That's just my take on it.
That's the very reason I'm looking at the bottom numbers. Those are one-time dollars, and this is a one-time expense. It doesn't get us into any of the funds that were put there to help us deal with the situation we're in now. That's why I asked for this table. This is a one-time deal. We have money that's meant for one-time stuff. We're going to redesignate what it's for. But all three of those will be replaced without us having to dip in anywhere else, because they're done with fees and that sort of thing that are connected to the growth in this community. To me, I think it's something we ought to do, and B, it's the safest way to do it. It lets us do it, and it doesn't jeopardize our ability to deal with our employees or the services that we're going to present to the community. It can't be used as an argument against doing something later. That's important to me.
Yeah, I guess my comments on it, I can see both sides here, and obviously when it comes to supporting businesses in this town who do a lot to support our community, I think, if you're going to consider a program like this, you also consider the person who works at a business in Modesto who lost their job because they're closed down or works out of town and can't pay their rent. The business that's shut down in Ripon might not be able to pay its rent on the building, but also maybe just the person who's working at a different place, or I guess there's lots of different scenarios where a person's in need, and maybe different options to consider included in it. If you're going to go forward with a program, how do you pick which specific people you're going to give it to is, I guess, a concern to me. Is there any other?
Well, I have an answer to that one too. We're not giving it to individuals. We're giving it to businesses. One of the places that are cut out in this proposal are home businesses. We're doing this to brick and mortar businesses here in town. And we're meant to address the issues associated with them being brick and mortar, not a person who's unemployed.
Well, in a sense, they've gotten bailed out too because of unemployment and whatever that tax $1,200 was, which I never got any, neither did my wife, but
None of us got it.
A lot of people got that money that were in that type of position, but.
And there's also programs, the same programs for business loans.
There
as well,
was,
already. So,
yeah, but I never applied for any of that stuff.
And there's potentially more money to be available from the federal government as well.
Well, we could probably sit here and talk about this all day, but
Yeah.
do we need I'll make a motion that.
I don't know that we need a motion, do we, or?
Actually, I do have a couple of things I think I'd like to talk through just so we can get some clarification. If council wants to move forward with something, I think we would be putting together the final version in an application that we would bring back with a resolution for council to consider at another special meeting. We're getting good at these things, I guess.
We have more special meetings than we have meetings.
We're a special group.
Get that in a minute.
What did he say?
We're a special group.
Absolutely get in the minute.
So just to go kind of through some of the discussion analysis of the staff report there, we did kind of put in the staff report that the program should assist businesses that were mandated to be closed. So there are some businesses that were considered obviously non-essential that had to be closed. Other essential businesses were allowed to remain open. So they would not be eligible essential businesses. The program should also assist businesses in the sit-down and dine-in restaurant industry. Even though those were allowed to stay open, they were allowed to stay open at a very, I think, limited capacity. Businesses that the program is not intended to assist is office-type businesses. Examples, mortgage companies, insurance agencies.
Insurance agency, how'd they get that?
Financial advisors, CPAs, or professional office type businesses, because they either worked at the office or a lot of them could work from their house without it affecting business too much. businesses in the construction industry. The construction industry was allowed to remain operational during this time. Manufacturing, that remained open during the shutdown because they were related to essential service industries. We have a lot of manufacturing in town that did remain open. They are tied to like the ag industry around here, so they stayed operational during this time. Home occupation businesses and nonprofit organizations. On that list of approximately 100 businesses that we narrowed the business license list down to that we thought would be eligible, there was a little over 100 businesses, I think roughly about 108 or so. They did include fast food restaurants on that list, and I'm not sure where council would want to fall on that. I think the fast food restaurants did see probably a little bit of a downturn in their operations there, but by and large, I think they do survive off of the drive-through portions of the restaurants, which were still active and operational. Probably got a little bit busier to an extent. Also, we did not put on that list number of employees. Like I said, Lathrop did anywhere from 3 to 20 employees, part-time or full-time. We do have some businesses in town that I think would want to apply for this program that have less than 3 employees. And there's probably some businesses in town that have slightly over 20 employees that would want to apply for the program that we think would probably be eligible. So we didn't put any number of employees on there in the guidelines. Other points I think I put in there, it's just to throw out for some discussion. If businesses have already received assistance from some other programs, there were some other programs out there, the PPP, which was the Paycheck Protection Program, that businesses were obviously able to apply for at banks, and those are loans from the federal government that could turn into grants if you use them in the appropriate ways. And there's also some other another small business administration loan that also assisted some of these businesses during this time. So we'd have to ask them in the application process if they did receive some of those loans, which would automatically make them ineligible if that's what the council decided or not. That's up to you guys. And then also on the list, about half the list, if not less than half the list, is businesses that are probably more than half the list is businesses that are what I call in the service industry. They don't produce a lot of sales tax for the city. So if you're looking at a return on investment of your grant money, those businesses are going to be a little tough to get that return out of, I think, in the sense of direct return from out their door. Now, some people always make the argument that somebody coming to a service business eats lunch here in town, or they fill up with gas, and that's just hard to track. But the restaurant businesses, they do produce sales tax dollars to the city. Each restaurant kind of in varying amounts. And there was a few retail businesses on there as well that produce sales tax that comes back to the city. So at some point in time, you would see probably some of those repaying back the grant money through sales tax generation by remaining open. Another item that we didn't really address in here, what we might want to is if a business do we require they stay open for a certain period of time after getting this money? I know at least of one business here in the downtown that announced they were closing. I think they were looking to close maybe even before this hit, but this thing kind of pushed them over the edge. Would they be eligible to receive grant funds even though they're not going to reopen their doors? That's stuff we'd probably want to make sure we include in there. So those little list of items to throw out for discussion, or happy to answer any other questions on that.
I've got some comments, 3 comments. So as far as SBA and PPP or other grant money, you're just going to ask them and they certify that they didn't get it, right?
Yeah, I don't know of any other.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so they certify. The next thing is, how about people that live in town but happen to, maybe they locate their business in Salida or Modesto, but they live here and they've been shut down. They've been affected, but they're a business. Maybe they even hire people from Ripon, but the business is another city. That would be excluded, correct?
Correct. The business location has to be within city limits.
Okay, and then as far as home-based businesses, there's a lot of people, at least that I know, that own like real estate companies that own property. And that's their business, is owning properties. But they don't have an office where they have it. They run the office from their home, or they've got managers. And they're not getting rents in every case necessarily, but they pay property taxes and everything else. Do they qualify? Because that is a business, but it's based out of their house. Rather than renting a storefront, they're out of their house, but it could generate a lot of property tax.
So home lock businesses were on the list of stuff that we wouldn't look to fund, but that's kind of a gray area. Like you said, some home locks do produce sales tax, but it's hard.
But in my opinion, we're indirectly helping that guy, because if we send a grant to the 3 businesses that are renting offices from him so that they can pay their property taxes so that he can conduct his business, indirectly, he's benefiting from this program.
But if you own apartments, you don't.
That's true, but that's
I'm
not a
just
business.
asking the question. I'm just asking the
No.
question.
I understand, but this idea is in my mind, I talked to one of the councilmen from Lathrop. Their idea was they wanted to support the brick and mortar businesses in town so that they could continue to be a brick and mortar business. And I think the issue of whether or not they were or will be open ought to be addressed. I don't want this thing to get all technical, but I think you ought to at least ask the question. Are you going to be open 6 months from now? The answer is no. Well, okay. We'll put it to somebody who will be. And if they say yes and they close in 5.5 months, there's a point at which it's not worth it. It's not.
You know, as long as they say they're gonna attempt to try to be open, that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to help them. And I mean, if they, 3 months later, they close down, but I mean, we're not gonna, yeah.
Lieutenant Sauer.
Yeah.
So the other item that's not necessarily in the program that's in front of you, or the draft of the program, was like I said, the grant money that they maybe could have received, or the loans they could have got. So
I think you ask them.
that's a varying, yeah, we don't, I mean, that's going to whittle down that list of 100 businesses. There is some businesses in town I did think received some. It is, those programs I know were, at least one of them I know was based on payroll. And so, and the amount of money you get is based on what your payroll is, because it is a payroll protection program. And then they also gave extra money, a little bit extra money to cover some rent and utilities, which was a portion of what they gave you for the, so, you know, council can go a couple routes with that. If they got any money out of that, would that automatically disqualify them from getting any grant money for this program or not?
Say almost every business in town did apply, and almost every business got money. So I don't.
There's quite a few in town that did receive money.
But
You're
the
right.
thing is,
Right.
that you really don't even legitimately don't know if they're gonna have to pay that money back or not pay it back. It was easy to get the money, I guess, if you wanted it, but
If you use it for the right purposes as intended,
but-
you don't pay it back.
I mean, I didn't use it, but I mean, from the people I talked to, the intent could go the other way, and the government could end up asking for that money back at some point in time. So, I mean, you know, I think that's what's could happen. So I don't know that you'd want to even include that in there, to be my opinion. But
So I've got one last question is, I know that we talk about gift of public funds all the time, but I'm sure Tom's already looked at this, and this isn't considered a gift of public fund, right?
That's correct. If you can hear me.
Oh, there you are.
I've been paying
Oh, that was
attention.
Tom out
Over here
there.
quietly.
Say what?
Yeah, so we've articulated a public purpose for the program. And once you articulate a legitimate public purpose for the program like this, then it's not a gift of public funds.
Okay.
That'll be in the resolution that we've prepared. Also, one other quick thing on the enforcement part of this. One of the ideas we're kicking around at a staff level, haven't gone too far with it yet, is what happens if somebody just out and out fabricates an application or fraudulently fills out an application? What do we do in that type of a situation? One of the remedies we're talking about is we would be able to revoke their business license, which would prevent them from doing business in the future in the city. So we want to look at some very deterrent-based type enforcement mechanisms, and that's one. There may be others that we look at as well.
Is there a fine associated with that too?
There could be, although, again, it comes down to enforcement of that and being able to defend that fine in court should it happen. Yanking the business license is a pretty good remedy from where we sit. That doesn't mean fines couldn't be part of that package as well.
My advocation would be fines are included in that. So kind of, you want to make sure that you deter as many people as possible from looking at this as, as just a giant cash grab that they can get in and get out. So.
Well, I suspect at the bottom, when you sign that thing, you certify, blah, 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 and it's fraud if you've given her false information, all that stuff, just like a typical bank application,
I mean,
right?
depending on how difficult you make the application, it's gonna be pretty simple to verify if are you a business that has a license in Ripon? I mean, what more, if you're not gonna ask for much more information, and then the only thing that they're gonna falsify is whether if you go to the level of, hey, did you get, government funds already? Well, I guess it's my opinion, it shouldn't really matter whether they got them or not. If we're gonna make it fair for all the businesses, whether you got other funds from the government already or not.
I know people that got hundreds of thousands of dollars that not sure they're gonna have to spend it, but they can show that they spent it. So it's free money.
Right.
So I don't know.
But, I think anybody that would have applied, or most of them would have gotten it. But.
So the application process, we have to put the application together, but obviously we ask they have to have part of the requirements is they have to have a current business license within the city of Ripon for their business as of March 1st of this year. So they have to have already had that in place. They can't just come in and get one, this week because they think they want to apply for the program.
Good way to get a business started.
Yeah, startup costs here.
Really, first equity money.
Yeah.
And we are kind of stating they have to use the funds or should be used for rent, payroll, and utilities, although we're not necessarily going to follow up on that, but we are asking for them to submit some forms like proof of a monthly lease payment or property payment with bank statements showing that those payments in the past, and also submit proof of utility bills or copy of utility bills for the last couple months to show that they've been paying utilities at the place of business as well. Also be submitting a completed W-9 form from their previous tax year or for this tax year if they've already got it filed and completed. So those are some of the ideas that we're going to be trying to include on the application just to ensure that we're, I think, weeding out anybody that's maybe would fraudulently try to pull an application. And we do have a very comprehensive list here of businesses in town that have active licenses. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to know if somebody's got a business license or not.
Yeah. Do we have any indication from any of the businesses whether or not they are interested or want this type of program? Has anybody come and asking if we do have it already?
We have not reached out to
Yes.
anybody.
Well, but have they been asking for it, or have they reached out to the city to specifically ask for it?
No, I've had a couple.
That have asked about it?
No, I've had a couple ask me if we were gonna do something when they heard that Lathrop and Stockton did theirs. They said, well, it's Ripon.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the interest is there, but based on the discussion, if there's no overriding objection, would it be all right to direct the staff to put this thing together and have a meeting early next week?
I don't have any issue with them putting it together. I'd like to see the details before I say I'm going
Well,
to support
that's
it.
what I'm
But
saying.
yeah, so
I'm not, I think they've got a gist of our concerns and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Put a resolution and the application and maybe a descriptor together and get us back together. If possible, send it out early so that we're not wasting time reading here. But then see if, and then we can decide whether we want to do it or not.
any objections to that? No. I think we've got 3.
No objections over here.
So just for some guidance on the dollar amount, I kept hearing 3,000 thrown around. Is that obviously, like I said, the 2 programs that we're aware of, obviously Lathrop's doing 5,000 and Stockton, I think is doing 3,000 on it. So whatever counts is.
Is Tracy and Manteca doing anything in Lodi that we know of?
Not that I've heard.
Escalon?
I'm not aware.
I'm not aware of those.
I don't think we've gone any higher, so use that as a basis. And then, I mean, we all know what it is, and if we want to go down incrementally or up, fine. That can be decided if this thing flies.
All right, got the direction you need?
Thanks.
Okay,
Have a
well.
good weekend.
Already on.
Yeah, who breaks the news to Mitzi?
So I guess we're done with that. We'll go back to closed session now. So
Do we need public comment before we do it?
is there any public comment on closed session items?
There is no public comment on closed session.
All right, Dan, are we good to go in closed session?
Any comment on this thing? Since it was open up to the public.
Okay.
I thought Dan was on top of it.
Now, how
All
come
right.
you get a new venue, but we still got to stay behind the same seats?
You're on, you're on.
I don't care. I mean, still in different venues.
I'm 900 miles of social distancing away from you guys.
Far enough?
Looks quite nice.
It's not
Yeah.
quite far enough from the SOS group, but it's, anyway. All right, so are we ready for this?
Yes, you're back in open session.
So the council did meet in closed session to discuss two items. One was the pending negotiations with and giving direction to our labor negotiators. Staff was given direction, no further action on that. And then the council had a brief discussion about the SOS proposed tax initiative. And again, staff was given direction to craft a resolution for further consideration at the June meeting.
All right, thank you.
Hammer, you can
With
have-
that, we're closed, open.